I want to tell you guys something. You see the Project Veritas expose the other day? Mm-hmm. It's like this morning when I wake up and I'm doing my morning segment. I'm watching the video again because we watched it the other night. I just went on YouTube and I looked up 90s commercials and I was like, I'm just gonna 15 minutes of commercials from the 90s just to remember the good old days when there were no troubles. And I know my parents probably had troubles and there was war and stuff, but I was a little kid, so I'm gonna watch these commercials, forget all about it. That was so disturbing that this dean was talking about how they were giving these kids these adult objects, teaching them how to use them and to spit on them and things like that. I can't even say it because you might have kids in the room. And so I posted on Facebook, and here's the funny thing. What do you think the response is from the left when they hear this stuff? Do you think they go, wow, that's a bridge too far for me. I better rethink what I'm doing? No. They say, well, he doesn't seem at all worried about it. The school seems to stand by it. It must be okay. And I'm like, bro, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. As long it's like that's this I forgot I don't know what you'd call it, but the story about when there's a fire in a room, if one person is in a room by themselves and smoke comes through, they'll go to the door, feel the door, and go, hey, there's smoke, there's a fire. They'll yell. But if you have multiple people in a room, the smoke will go under the door, and everyone will look at each other, look confused, and then ignore it because no one's doing anything. It's like these collectivists can actually be shown a video of a man bragging about how cool it is that they're doing these things to children. Well, but nobody's mad about it, so it must be okay, right? And that's just like, if you're a person, a leader of strong moral fiber, you're gonna be like, no, I have a line. That's beyond for me. I'm sorry.
That's why we have a Senate. That's why we're supposed to have a morally righteous Senate. Maybe that's why they say that this government can't last without Christianity in it, because we need some group of leaders that are critical thinkers that can see it when it happens, see disillusionment when it rears its ugly head.
There's a couple things I want to say about this story, but this is a family-friendly broadcast, and I'm going to save those comments for later. Well, what's your response to stuff like that? I mean, you're in the political world, right? Do the voters see stuff like that? Does it affect them, or is it, as Tim says, they see it and they're like, whatever?
I think some people are tacitly approving of it because they'd rather not rock the boat. They'd rather not get into political debates, and I think that's wrong. And what Tim just said really shows the necessity that we have to speak out against it. Especially, we were just talking about this earlier. This book, to people who don't know, Genderqueer, is in schools across the country, and we've had principals, we've had school boards fight to keep it in schools. And it says things that I would never say to a child, let alone my mother or other adults. I think, quite frankly, I would consider this child pornography, and this is in our schools. And what people don't know, they don't know what they don't know. And I think if people did find out that this was in our schools, that they would be horrified and that it would actually motivate them to get involved. And I think we saw that with Virginia and Governor Glenn Youngkin, et cetera. But, even for myself, I was thinking, what is my philosophy when it comes to being a conservative or Republican or just I consider myself a freedom nationalist. We've been hearing people say Christian nationalist. No, I'm a freedom nationalist. And usually what I say is people should be able to do whatever they want in the comfort of their home, consensually and legally, so long as they're not abridging or infringing on the rights of anybody else, right? But then I thought to myself, but when you use the word legal, well, there have been horrible policies that have been legal in the past. And because it was legal, people use that as an excuse to continue on with it. Should we introduce what is moral, what is ethical? And I think that's a conversation to be had as well, because some of the things that are happening in America, like the Patriot Act, for example, just because it's legal, does that make it right?
Yeah, a lot of the back to blue people need to also realize, a lot of the worst atrocities in recorded human history were legal. And when they say, I'm just following the law, I'm just doing what I'm told, they're going along with some of the worst actions that have happened to human beings, whether it's slavery, the genocide, the Holocaust, you name it. All of that was codified by law. So we need to really start seeing things from a different perspective. A lot more people are becoming godless. I think that also is maybe having an effect on this. I never believe the government will be there to solve any of your problems. I think they're only there to create more problems in your life. So how do you enforce that in a way without using government is a question that I think a lot of people should be asking themselves. Is there a solution without, big force, big government doing this for us?
Usually social ostracization, like if you can get people ground up to believe in a morality.
But they control the culture, and they're pushing people to not be religious. They're pushing people not to believe in a higher power above themselves.
This is why the left calls people white supremacists. I want you to think about that story, Gore Meltz. You guys heard the Gore Meltz story out of Fredericksburg, VA. There's during COVID lockdown, the guy who owns it says, "I'm not doing this. You can't shut me down. That's unconstitutional." Bravo, good sir, Matt Strickland. And eventually they say, okay, then we're gonna shut you down. We're gonna take your license from you. So he's in this dispute. It's 2 years later, basically, and they go into his business, the police, to serve a search warrant and give him a suspension or whatever, and try and shut him down. How do you deal with cops like that? Well, the left figured it out. You call them white supremacists. Why? It's one of the most repugnant things you can call someone. It's also inactionable. If you call someone a white supremacist, they cannot sue you because it's an opinion. And what does it really even mean? The term is nebulous, perhaps on purpose. But for the average voter, they know what it means. It means something. So if you have cops come into your business, they do this to you. Well, my idea was shun those cops, right? Make sure those cops can't buy a cup of coffee in that town. And if they ever want to eat food again, they'll have to move because they violated the rights of a good, hardworking businessman who was just trying to feed his family, keep his business operating, serve the community, and the cops wanted to violate the Constitution. So the simple solution, nonviolent civil disobedience, is if you got a business in Fredericksburg, watch the video of those cops and then put up signs in your window saying, "You are not welcome here, turn around." Here's the issue. How do you make sure in a large city like that you can stop people from supporting those cops? Well, if you go around and try and explain the nuances of why they violated the Constitution, how they violated the Constitution, and why someone should support your efforts to bar those cops, they're going to say, "Look, I have no time for this. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what that means." And then you go, "They're white supremacists." The guy's going to go, "Oh, okay. They're not welcome here then." That simple. That's why the left does what they do. They don't want to waste time explaining anything to anybody. It's too long. It's too complicated. No one cares. They simply say, this guy is a Nazi, and if you support him, you know what happens. And they go, okay, you got it.
Yeah, appeal to emotions. Try and emotionally get someone to be afraid of serving them emotionally.
Right. That's why they do it. Because it's the fastest and easy way to get someone barred from a business, get their bank account shut down, get them banned from social media.
It is a functional tactic. I don't know if it's the right way to go.
My knee-jerk reaction is, again, I haven't thought this through, but I don't think maybe we should be using the same kind of policies that they used. And I think there is some kind of karmic...
You think we should keep serving these cops and let them eat burgers at our restaurants?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm specifically going about using this kind of mass generalization. And again, I haven't thought this through. Just calling white supremacists.
I said that's why the left does it. I didn't say we do it. I say we have to shun them from our businesses. But the reason they use these terms is because it's very difficult to explain in complicated politics to the average person.
I was actually consider using the tactic because, like you were saying earlier, we use the tactics they use if there's ever like a competition of something. If you don't, you're going to get snowballed. So like you kind of have to use the same. But then when they start using evil, underhanded tactics, you're like, the ends don't justify the means in every situation.
I got it. Do you guys know where the word rape comes from? Like the root of it, what it means?
No.
So obviously in modern society, it means, typically a man forcing himself on a woman, though in modern times it is used woman on man as well. But there's a reason why the phrase raping and pillaging is together, because it used to refer specifically to barbarous hordes going into a village, destroying it and stealing everything. So that was raping the village, was to take all their stuff. But in the process, like the Vikings, for instance, they would take women with them. And that's how it went to get this specific meaning in today's day and age. But if semantics is all we're really talking about, then those cops raped that guy, right? And then you could say, here's a cop, he's a rapist. Well, that's what rape means, right? The traditional definition. If you want to play fight fire with fire and play those games, that's the game they play. Now, here's my issue. I agree, right? I don't like those tactics. I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to live in a world where people are just saying things to mean something they don't really mean because they're trying to trick people. But how do you, and I mean this sincerely, I'm not saying we should utilize the tactics of manipulation. I'm saying what is the counter to those manipulative tactics in a way that we can stop bad cops from like raiding businesses like this?
I mean, I'm kind of guilty. I just did it today. I posted on my Instagram, some tweets of mine criticizing Joe Biden freeing the merchant of death to Russia. And I said on my Instagram account, Joe Biden is a Russian asset. I don't believe that's trying to trick or manipulate. I think it's true with the Nord Stream 2 and with his policy of trading terrorists for Americans because it's going to set precedent. But I think it's a duality. Yes, we need to do those tactics as truthfully as we can because look, at the end of the day, we live in a world where information travels so quickly that people just want to be the first at everything. And it doesn't matter whether it's true or false. They just want to be the first because it means that information is going to travel as quickly as possible globally. But I think Ian and I, hopefully everybody at this table would agree that 99.9% of people around the globe are good, decent human beings. But it's the 0.1% that is the loudest minority, which seems to be in control because they're able to say those terrible things about others. And so many are unwilling or maybe unable to speak against them. And I think that we need to lead by example. Yes, speak out, but also lead by example with conservative policy, with passing conservative legislation and showing people an alternative to what the Democrats have been using against us. And let's show how we can do it in a righteous and virtuous way. And to give you an example, look at Baltimore. Everybody was having this conversation about trash in the city, but nobody was doing anything. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go pick up trash. And it was that one action which spurred others to go, wait a second. I can do the same thing. Why are we going to wait for the government to come in and save us? We can do it ourselves. And that one action of mine empowered so many people to believe that they could do the same. And I think that truly is part of the answer. Lead by example.
So to answer, I guess that, and what you're saying, like boycotting these cops, which I'm not necessarily agreeing with, but it is a way to deal with the situation of cops overarching their authority, like just one restaurant manager at a time. One guy tells one guy, word of mouth, rather than trying to lie about these guys and defame them, just be straight up. They came in, they shut down an aspect of my business if it actually violates the Constitution.
Or, we could just take photos of them and put up wanted posters saying that there's pirates going around town destroying people's livelihoods and business. And that technically is not a lie too, right?
It would say not wanted because they don't want them in the...
No. Or beware.
Pictures of...
beware pirates running around shutting down businesses on behests of bureaucrats.
As long as you're
like,
not defaming,
hey, these guys will do whatever it takes to screw you over if they have to. I think even those beware posters might be something.
Maybe I should just put up a bunch of billboards all over Fredericksburg with their pictures on it.
That could be. Yeah, that could be.
You can do that. That's free speech. So if I put up if I put their photos from the video on billboards and then put "Do not serve these men in your establishment. They're bad cops." That's my free speech. It's not actionable, and billboards cost between a couple $100 and a couple $1,000 depending on where they are. Why don't we just set a budget and put those billboards up all over Fredericksburg, Virginia?
Yeah.
I'll make a phone call first thing in the morning.
That's absolutely one way of doing it. Doing flyers, passing out flyers, being like, hey, this is a community effort here. I think also meeting with the community, meeting with the restaurant owner and the other businesses and other people of that community and seeing how they want to handle this too, creating a relationship with them and having them come together when something bad happens, I think is also something that could be incredibly strong and incredibly powerful of people saying, hey, we live together, we're in the same community together. There was clearly a state that committed a crime and a violation against a private enterprise and a private business here that was serving the community. Let's come together and let's act together. And you might not even have to buy a billboard. It could be posters. It could be just a piece of paper with the photos photocopied, put up everywhere on poles.
Yeah, with diplomacy, you could get together with the restaurant owner, the police chief, and then maybe have a conversation publicly where they realize we are going to reinstate the liquor license. That was a bad move, and we're not going to do it again. That would be better than just smashing at people that made you angry, and then they're gone, and now new people are going to keep making the same issue over and over again. You got to go after those guys, and like.
Well,
Yeah,
no.
I think I want to put the billboards up, and I'll just put "Beware dirty cops," and I'll put their pictures up on the billboard. Warning.
They would have
Dirty
to,
cops.
think twice if they're going to do something like that.
It's
again.
true. Historically, cops would not mess with people in their own environment. They'd have to bring police in from another state or from like the government, from like a state government, because local cops don't mess with their friends and family. Like those are your neighbors.
And for good reason. And that kept things in order. When, the cop had to come down and deal with a brawl, it's like, listen, we got to stop the fight. Break it up, guys. Look, your dad's going to be pissed. I don't want to deal with this. Now they bring in cops from 2 towns over and they walk in and say, don't know, don't care, pull the taser and just jab the guy. In this instance, it's a guy who was standing up for his constitutional rights. And 2 years later, they're like, we're going to destroy your business. Okay, those are dirty cops. I'm sorry. They're like, don't know, don't care. Well, you probably have to. So, someone super chatted, what about the thin blue line and protecting us from chaos? Yeah, if like in New York, a dude steals a school bus and is ramming people, then like I got no issue with the cops. Like that's I agree. Like there's a reason why we have police officers for situations of like a guy running around with a gun, but we're talking about a dude who's operating a business that sold beer. And the only reason they went after his liquor license was because he said F you to their unconstitutional edict. The cops want to enforce that? Okay, they're dirty cops, and maybe I'll just put up billboards. Dirty cops, and I'll put them all over the place.
Yeah, they protected Walmart. They protected Costco. They allowed all the businesses with connections to politicians to stay open. McDonald's, you could walk in there, get whatever you wanted, no problem. But this guy who had a small business had to be shut down by these politicians now, years
breakers.
after these edicts, because a politician went to police officers and said, go enforce this, and the police officer said, yes, sir, I'll do it right away. And all these back to blue guys need to face the reality because the national security state is being turned around on the people of America. It used to be that they were fighting, terrorists, but that again, don't even get me started on all that. But you do a lot of positive activism that you just mentioned in Baltimore. Is there a way to turn this situation and do some kind of positive activism here with this?
Well, I wasn't even thinking that way. Well, I agree that we need to keep it to the individual and, make it known that we're not painting with a broad brush. And yes, we do support the police, but we don't support the police when they are choosing as individuals to enforce unconstitutional legal mandates. But groups like Black Lives Matter, and I want to make it very clear, I don't support Black Lives Matter, but if they were smart, they're working, all of these conversations seem limited to short-term goals. If I were a part of Black Lives Matter and I really wanted to make a difference, I'd say, join the police force, become a policeman, because then you are going to be the enforcer of the laws that you are for or against, right? And same for us as conservatives when we're calling out the sexualization of children within our schools. Well, a long-term approach will be become a school board member, become a city council member, and become a teacher. Become the solution to the problem you're talking about in the long term. That would be more my positive activism as to actually try to solve this from a long-term perspective.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.